Again, I really want to apologize. He said silly goose on a Sunday morning publicly. It felt awkward for me, so I know it felt awkward for you out there. Hey, what we love to do here at Redemption is we love to just teach through books of the Bible. And so we are currently going through the Gospel of Matthew, which is one of the 4 accounts of Jesus' life. So to kick off the New Testament, you have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew is one of the accounts of Jesus' life written by one of his dear disciples. And what it essentially teaches, if you're looking high level, Matthew, what are you teaching us? He's teaching us about a king and a kingdom. And particularly, we're going through Jesus' most famous sermon in Matthew chapter 5 through Matthew chapter 7, called the Sermon on the Mount. And what he does is he teaches us about the king, his kingdom, but particularly, how do we live under the rule and reign of King Jesus? And so if you're here and you're like, I want to follow Jesus with my whole heart, this is the sermon for you. And we're actually at the tail end of it. So we've been going through this since a week after Easter. We've been in it for months and months. It's really rich. I'd encourage you, if you haven't heard all the sermons, go back, listen on our app or website. But we're reaching the tail end of it. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to be moving on to another series. But today we're going to talk about a saying, a teaching that I know that every single person in this room at some level has been taught or at least heard. So we'll be in Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. And this is Jesus preaching in the Sermon on the Mount. So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them. For this is the law and the prophets. This concise little statement, again, has been heard and preached many times over throughout the world. I would actually argue in Jesus' most famous sermon, this is the most famous statement in the most famous sermon, known as the Golden Rule. If you have kids, maybe you taught your kids this rule, or you're a teacher or whatever. Hey, treat them like you want to be treated. At some level, we've heard this rule taught before, but I think few of us have actually stopped and considered the richness and the depth of this teaching. And so what I want to do is I want to explain how we have lived and experienced different rules in our life. And so I want to talk to you first about the iron rule. Many of us have lived through maybe a household that was governed by this rule, maybe at some level, friendships, a work environment under the iron rule. And just to make it really concise, this is what the iron rule is. Might makes right. This rule is all about power and force. So you can look throughout human history and go, all right, there's really clear examples. So Alexander the Great, right? 12 years, he conquered vast portions of the world. I mean, this guy was a conqueror. He clearly lived by the iron rule because he didn't conquer these nations by being winsome. No, he went in there and said, I'm going to take you over. This is now going to be a part of my empire. You can look at other conquerors or emperors like Julius Caesar. He was a Roman emperor. And he has this famous saying as he was conquering different lands and subscribed to him. And he says, Vini, vidi, vici, not Vicky, Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. Literally, this is what he lived by. Hey, I came, I saw what I wanted, and I took it by sheer force. So it's really easy to see some examples of that throughout human history of just might and power and living under that rule. But have you considered that we still live by people who operate and think through this grid or this rule? I was doing some studying this past week, and Safe Home, this is what it reported. That the home security market will grow from, you ready for this, worldwide, $40.7 billion worldwide in 2020 to $84.4 billion in 2027. So in 7 years, this industry is going to double to $84.4 billion. You know what this is attesting to? The iron rule. That there's people who may want our stuff And we've got to come up with an answer, more power and more force to prevent them from getting our stuff. So every lock on our door or window, every video camera that we have throughout our place is subscribing to this rule, the iron rule. By the way, it's not bad to protect your stuff from people who live under this rule. Many of us, it starts all the way in grade school, right? You're at the playground, and the bully comes in. And the bully goes, I want what I want. You're going to do what I want. He's living under the iron rule. And as we grow up, maybe you even grew up in a household where dad or a parent or a spouse, they were like, the iron rule is how we're going to live. It's force, it's power. We're going to do things my way because I'm bigger, stronger than you. Some families are ruled by that. Some husbands or spouses even live by that to this day. Maybe you're at a workplace and the boss is just domineering. We're going to do this my way or the highway. And by position and by power, they live by the iron rule. Now, what we can quickly see is whenever people live under the iron rule, here's what it can quickly lead to: abuse, manipulation, the weak being taken advantage of by the strong. And so Jesus has a very, very different calling for us. Here's the calling of Jesus. I've entrusted to you strength, not for self-gain. I've entrusted to you strength. Why? Well, you can serve others. Jesus is the most beautiful example of this, right? He sits on the throne of heaven. Everything is underneath him. Then he comes and puts on flesh and blood. And what does he do? He comes not to be served, but to serve. What great restraint and focusing his power on ultimately dying for us in our place for our sins. Beautiful example of not living under the iron rule. And we too have not been called to live under this rule, but to use our strength, our might, our power, not for self-gain, but for the good and service of others. Now, there's another rule, and I would say that this is how culture lives. It's called the wooden rule. And the wooden rule is essentially do unto others what they do to you. So if you're mean to me, I'm going to be mean and ugly back to you. There's also positive aspects to this, right? If you're nice to me, then I'll be nice to you. If you hit me, though, I'll hit you. If you sue me, I'll sue you in return. If you step in the gap and you help me in some way, then okay, I'll step in the gap and help you. This is rooted in the idea of fairness and immediate justice. And this is, again, how most of culture lives. Most of culture wants to live this way, that if you treat me in a certain way, I'm going to treat you back in the same way. Now, here's part of the difficulty. Few people can actually live by this rule because have you ever been hurt by somebody? Let me say it this way. If you're a parent, has your kid ever been hurt by somebody? Maybe it is the bully at school. Maybe it is somebody else. What do you want to do as a parent? You want to retaliate. You want to take revenge. And you not only want to hurt the person that hurts you or your child, but you often want to hurt them just a degree higher, right? Like I want to get back at them, but I want to get back at them in such a way that they feel it and they feel it even worse. And so what we see is this rule, it creates this vicious cycle of hurt, greater hurt, greater hurt, greater hurt, greater violence, greater retaliation. And it's just this spin cycle of whatever you do to me, I'm going to do to you. But it's difficult for me to restrain myself to make it equal. I want it to hurt more. And of course, Jesus says, I've got a greater calling for you. Even in the Sermon on the Mount, this is where he famously said, love your enemies. So the people that curse you, I mean, they verbally assault you. Maybe they talk behind your back. They gossip about you. I don't want you to curse them back. I want you to bless them with your words. All right, Jesus, this is a little too far. It's one thing not to retaliate to how somebody treated me. It's a wholly other thing for me to go, I'm not only going to treat you differently, but I'm going to love you. Those that hurt us, he says, do good. We're supposed to pray for those that are considered enemies. Jesus, this is a very, very high calling. And then this is what we do. It's not a bad thing to want justice. It's rooted in our nature. But what we read over and over in the New Testament is we read that there is one great judge who will make all things right. And so we're entrusting ourselves to him, who judges justly. Now, I want to be very clear. I am not talking about if somebody does something illegal, they were just like, God's going to judge them. No, like you call the cops, like you deal with it. Sometimes God, what he does is he brings about his justice immediately and swiftly through law enforcement, through courts, through one government versus another government. And so don't misunderstand me, but our calling individually is to love our enemies, pray for them, bless them, do good to them, despite the fact that they may not be doing the same thing to us. So we know that the calling of Jesus is not the wooden rule. Now, then you have the silver rule. And this is essentially what the silver rule is. Don't do to others what you would not have them do to you. And every great Eastern religion teaches this. Every great Eastern religion. So Confucius, this is what he says. He was a Chinese philosopher. He says, what you do not wish yourself, do not do unto others. Okay? Buddhism teaches, hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. So really what we see is there's a negative aspect to this. Even Hinduism teaches essentially the same thing. What you don't want people to do to you, don't do to them. And it's this negative expression of the golden rule. As a matter of fact, I read this week, there was an atheist blogger, and a lot of people had read his blog, and he goes, see, can't you see, all world religions are basically the same, and he was putting on the table the golden rule and the silver rule. And what I would submit to you is they're not the same, and actually the silver rule is very, very dangerous. You're like, how so? Well, the silver rule may forbid me from doing certain things, but it doesn't propel me to love. So the Bible says it this way. There's two kinds of sins. There's sins of commission and sins of omission. So what are sins of commission? Well, sins of commission are sins I commit. So the Bible's pretty clear. I shouldn't lie. I shouldn't cheat. I shouldn't steal. I shouldn't murder. I shouldn't hate. I shouldn't take advantage of people. So when I do those things, when I do lie, when I do steal, when I do take advantage of people, when I use my strength not for the good of others, but for self-gain, I'm committing a sin. And so the silver rule actually does well to say, don't do that. We should not hurt people. However, the Bible also speaks of sins of omission. What does that mean? Well, sins of omission is I don't do what I should do. James says it this way. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. So I have the ability to help someone, and I don't. I have the ability to bring justice to the situation, and I don't. This, again, is where the silver rule can be very, very dangerous. Let me say it another way. Jesus tells a story, and many of you have heard the story of the Good Samaritan. Basically, this story came about because Jesus was being questioned by the religious elite. And they go, all right, tell us who is our neighbor? Essentially is the bottom line question. Who is our neighbor, Jesus? Because for them, a neighbor was a person that shared the same ethnicity, the same Jewish faith, the same religion, right? That's my neighbor. And I can treat other people however I want. And so Jesus tells a story. And the story goes essentially like this. There's a man that's going from Jericho to Jerusalem. That's about a 27-mile trek. And this journey from Jericho to Jerusalem, you had to go through some pretty desolate areas. And back then, it wasn't like, traveling down I-75 where there's lots of people. No, you could at times be walking for miles and miles and miles alone in a desolate area. And so it was also very dangerous to travel back then. And so this man is making this 27-mile trek, and what happens? There's robbers. And they jump out and they beat him. They take everything he has and leave him for half dead. What rule is that? The robbers are living under the iron rule. Might. Power. I'm going to get what I want by using my strength. So then you have a priest. Man, he's kind of a mediator between God and man. And you'd hope that this guy, if he's representing God, if he's a guy that's supposed to be a spiritual leader in Jerusalem, you'd hope that he would stop, and yet he doesn't. He sees the man half dead, half naked, just lying there, and he goes on the other side. In some ways, maybe this is the wooden rule. I don't know him. He's never helped me. I'm just going to go around, mind my own business. Or maybe this is the silver rule. The silver rule says, don't hurt others. He's like, well, I'm not hurting him. I'm just going about my business. And then you have another man, a Levite, who works for the church or the temple. He's a professional religious leader. He does the same thing as the priest. Walks on the other side of the road, doesn't help. And then in a jaw-dropping turn of events, Jesus goes, and then there was a Samaritan. Samaritans and Jews did not like one another. There was an ethnic divide there. They hated one another just because of their ethnicity and race. He goes, this Samaritan, who had nothing to do with Jews in all likelihood, he stops and he helps this Jewish man. He binds up his wounds. He pours oil on him to take care of him. He puts him on his own animal. He takes him back into town, which, by the way, the priest may have said, I was busy. The Levite may have said, I've got important duties to do at the church. This guy's a busy man. How do we know this Samaritan's a busy man? Well, he takes him to the inn after caring for him and goes, hey, I still got to go on some business. I've got to deal with some things. And so what I want to do is I want to pay you, take care of him, make sure he gets back to full health. And he pays the innkeeper to take care of him. And then he goes about his business, this busy man. And he just goes, who do you think really the neighbor is? And he radically redefines neighbor. But in this story, again, you see kind of all of these rules at play. The silver rule doesn't say that I need to stop and help this man. The silver rule just forbids me from hurting other people, but doesn't speak at all about things I should be doing, sins of omission. I should be stepping in the gap. I should be helping this man on the side of the road. I should be binding his wounds and getting him somewhere safe. And so this is why when we look at the different rules in which people live by, the iron rule, the wooden rule, the silver rule, Jesus goes, the golden rule. He says it this way, so whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them. It is the positive form. Here's what it does. It not only forbids me from hurting people, it propels me to actually love people. Unlike the silver rule that says, don't hurt them, but doesn't mean you need to help them either. Jesus goes, no, you don't hurt them, but you also help them. Now, whenever Jesus said this teaching, it was radical in this day. I mean, absolutely radical. Yes, you had these teachings and these Eastern religions, but when Jesus said it this way, it was profound. William Barclay, who wrote a commentary on this passage, he says this: this is something which had never been said before. It is new teaching and a new view of life and of life's obligations. There is no parallel to the positive form in which Jesus put it. The richness, the depth of this kind of morality had never been taught before. And Jesus ups the ante. And not just that, he goes, hey, for this is the law and the prophets. Jesus only says something like this one other time. You can go to Matthew chapter 22. Again, the religious leaders are trying to trip Jesus up in his words, and they go, all right, since you're such a great teacher and you know so much, what's the most important commandment in all of the Old Testament? If you know anything about the Old Testament, you read the first 5 books of the Bible, you know that there's 600 plus commandments in there. Then on top of that, they were throwing extra commandments that were outside of the Old Testament on top. So there's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laws and commandments. And they go, all right, if you're so smart, if you're this great teacher, which one is most important? And Jesus summarizes the entire law by saying, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. For all the law and prophets hang on these. In other words, if you took a nail and you put it into the wall, it would hang all of the law on this simplification and summarization of the law. Jesus does that right here. He goes, the law can kind of be summed up in this: do unto others as you would have them do to you. Absolutely radical teaching. I'm currently reading through the book of Leviticus. Kind of a snooze fest. I mean, let's just be honest, lay all of our cards on the table. Some days I read it and I'm like, what just happened? Well, like, what did I just read? You know, I'm supposed to be the pastor. I'm supposed to, have these, grand times with the Lord. And sometimes I read Leviticus and I'm like, I'm so far removed from the time and the culture and the geography that this doesn't make sense to me, Lord. So I'm going to end the day a little bit more confused than I started the day. And Jesus goes, oh, if you want the heartbeat behind all of it, the heartbeat behind all of it is love. Though you may not understand some of the cultural aspects of these laws or the geographic or the time-bound aspects to these laws, the thing that weaves all of this together is love. Love for God and love for those around. This is the law and the prophets. Radical teaching about love. Now, here's what I know. We are keenly aware of what we want, right? Even moms, I've never been pregnant. But it did have a kidney stone, so I don't know if that's the same. They say it's the same. I feel like I've given birth, but I'm not sure. It is the same. And so whenever the child's inside your womb, right, that child will kick your organs internally. I remember my wife going, I'm so uncomfortable right now. Like he or she's pressing up against my stomach right now. It like hurts, or, who knows, kicking my liver right now. It hurts. And then the moment they come out, right, they're like, feed me, take care of me, change me. And then they continue to grow and they're like, they need you to take them to school and help me, do this with me, watch me. And what's really fascinating is, there's some people, they never actually grow out of this stage. Life is all about them well into their 80s, 90s. They never matured. By the way, age doesn't equal maturity. Following Jesus equals maturity. And so you have people their entire life that have been what we would call selfish. Hey, I do want to say that there are some positive aspects. So there's some things hardwired inside of us that we desire. Like, I desire to be known by others and for others to know me. I desire to be understood and seen by others. You see, this can actually have just a kind of a hard wiring component to it. Like, I want people to see me. That's not a bad thing. It's not an evil thing. Often, though, it comes from like this desire to this demand, like, you better see me. This is what I want. This is my preference. This is my selfishness exposing itself. So Jesus goes, you're really aware of how you want to be treated. So what I want to do is I want to flip selfishness on its head, and I want to make you a selfless people. You know how you know the intricacies of how you want to be treated? I want you to take that and consider other people and treat them in the way that you would want to be treated. Man, we could spend all of our lives trying to figure out how to do that. This is one of the most simple teachings in his most famous sermon, and I would say the most difficult to actually live out. So you want me to take my selfishness and you want to redeem it to make me a selfless person. The next two verses are also familiar if you've been around the church or you've heard this sermon before. This is what he says: enter by the narrow gate. For the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction, and those who enter by it are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. You know, this, again, is coming right on the heels of the golden rule. As Jesus is preaching the sermon, I don't want to just disconnect everything. He's like, all right, this topic over here and then this topic over here. So right after telling us, I want to redeem selfishness. I want to turn you into a selfless people. I want to teach you how to love. Everything hangs on this. Here's the reality. Most people will be selfish, and they will be selfish their entire lives. The gate of selfishness is wide. The road is broad, and there's a lot of people that are heading down that road. It's easy. It's comfortable at first, right? I don't have to worry. I just worry about me. I'm the center of the universe. And he goes, no. My people, they're going to do something radically different. They're going to go down the narrow gate, or through the narrow gate, down the narrow road. My people, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. It won't be easy, but it's beautiful at the end. As a pastor, I've had the privilege of doing a lot of different funerals. And sometimes, I'm just going to be blunt with you. Sometimes I have to do a funeral and I have to come up with something good about the person. And normally those are the funerals, they're really, really tiny. Those people have burned a lot of bridges. They were selfish the vast majority of their life, just kind of falling in line with everybody else. And it has destroyed the relationships in their life. It has destroyed family relationships, friendships. And so you're trying to find words to say about this person. But then there's other times that I'm asked to do a funeral. And you're like, it's a lot easier. There's a lot of things I could say about this person. And normally these are the funerals that have a lot of people around that are mourning, truly mourning the loss of this person. What I find is these people often took the narrow road, the road of selflessness, and it led to life. It may have been hard and difficult. By the way, ridding ourselves of selfishness is the hardest thing that we can do. Again, from the womb to the grave, it's this constant battle of like putting myself at the center of the universe versus putting others and Jesus in the center of the universe. But though hard and difficult, that road has beautiful results. What does it result in? It results in life. Life. Here's what I found in the church in America. Often what we have in the Church of America, we don't like to be confined to two roads, two gates. We're like, hey, what about the third one? Where I'm kind of selfish, I kind of live like everybody else, and then over here I'm like stretching myself out and I'm trying to follow Jesus, and Jesus is like, no, there's not like 3 roads. There's not 3 gates, there's 2. And though that may sound confining to us, I think Jesus didn't want to mislead us in any way. Going, hey, there's 2 ways to live, selfish or selfless. This always ends up bad, death, destruction. This always brings life to the relationships around you, and even eternal life. When I recognize that I am not the center of the universe and I trust Jesus and I put him in the center of my life, the centerpiece of who I am. So let me just encourage you in 2 ways as we end. First, if there's only 2 roads, well, I would encourage you strongly to commit to King Jesus. Matthew is about a king, a kingdom, and how we are to live. And so what I want to do is I want you and I to live under the rule and reign of King Jesus. There's not 3 roads, there's 2. And though we do it imperfectly, there's a trajectory to our life. We are pointed in a direction. And though I fall today, I'm pointed to him. And we would see him for all he's worth. We would see the value of following Jesus and the beautiful ending of eternal life with him. And then second, here's what I don't want you to do. Go, fine, I'm not going to be selfish anymore. I'm not going to be selfish in my marriage. I'm not going to be selfish in my parenting. I'm going to be selfless. Fine. And so you try to pick yourself up by the boots and go, I'm just going to will it. You know, willing ourselves to selflessness is going to last about 30 minutes. You may not choose where you go to lunch after this service because you humbly say wherever you want to go. But our will only gets us so far, and it is greatly limited. What you and I need is we need complete and total heart surgery. And not just heart surgery like repairing the one that's in there. No, we need a new heart. It's like a heart transplant. And so what we need to see, what we need to behold today is God's commitment to us. It says this in Romans 8:32. This is the Father. He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all. What kind of selflessness is this? What kind of father sacrifices his one and only son to bring back the wretch and the damned and the rebellious? Or our Heavenly Father, who is so committed to us and our reconciliation with him that he did the unthinkable, sending his one and only son to live a perfect sinless life, then dying in our place, a horrific death on the cross, but then 3 days later becoming the victorious king in which we follow and we live under his rule and reign. I hope you leave out of here holding Jesus tighter, not trying to will yourself to selflessness. The only way we become selfless people is by having a tighter and tighter grip on the good news of who Jesus is and what he has done. That, my friends, takes out that heart of stone and puts in a heart of flesh.